From playful puppets to full-on nightmare fuel, children's films have a long tradition of sneaking horror into innocence. But the most disturbing ones go deeper, into the unconscious, where fear shapes identity and trauma is buried beneath the surface. This list ranks 25 of the creepiest kids' movies ever made across 7 disturbing levels, not just by scare factor, but by how deeply they mess with the developing mind. Some start with unease, others leave permanent psychological residue. The deeper we go, the more horrifying it gets. Let's begin at the surface. Things are strange, but still safe, for now. Level 1, odd but harmless. These are the films that made us feel off. Not scared, just unsettled. The kind of stories that leave a strange taste in your mouth, even if nothing bad happens. Let's start with a blockbuster show where everything's just a little wrong. The Nightmare Before Christmas, 1993. Jack Skellington, the Pumpkin King of Halloween Town, becomes obsessed with Christmas and decides to take it over. But his version of the holiday includes creepy toys, skeleton reindeer, and a kidnapped Santa Claus. The visual style is both innocent and dark, filled with burial grounds, stitched-up characters, and spooky energy. Many young viewers reported feeling uneasy without knowing why, with some saying it gave them nightmares or made them avoid holidays for years. And if Halloween Town felt fun but secretly off, the next story proves that even something as silly as cartoons can slip into something truly disturbing. Who Framed Roger Rabbit, 1988. In this movie, cartoons live in the real world, but they're not portrayed well. A detective tries to solve a mystery while a creepy villain named Judge Doom melts a toon's shoe in acid, laughs about it, and later reveals he's a toon in disguise. The happy cartoon look hides a cruel, violent world. This was one of the first times kids saw animated characters, creatures they thought were untouchable, get tortured, erased, and killed. The moment Judge Doom drops a squeaky cartoon shoe into a vat of dip is burned into viewers' memories. The shoe cries, it screams, it melts. For many kids, it shattered the fantasy that cartoons are safe. It made death feel more real because it happened to something they loved. If that story made you think about cartoons, this one takes you even further into a world that seems magical but is always off. James and the Giant Peach, 1996. James lives with his cruel aunts until he escapes in a giant peach with talking bugs. The movie uses strange animation, and some scenes, like ghost pirates in a thunderous cloud shaped like a rhino, are just plain creepy. Even the friendly insects look a little too real. For some kids, this movie blurred the line between fantasy and nightmare, introducing the fear that something beautiful could suddenly turn dangerous and terrifying. If James couldn't find safety in fantasy, then even trusted objects can be left to suffer, abandoned, afraid, and no longer wanted. The Brave Little Toaster, 1987. A toaster, a lamp, and other old appliances go looking for their lost owner, but their journey is full of danger, junkyards, drowning, and even a nightmare about a fire clown. What starts as a cute quest turns into a sad lesson about being thrown away. The nightmare scene involving a clown made of fire, laughing as the toaster drowns, was especially traumatic. That image haunted kids for years, blending fears of fire, death, and guilt. The movie taught them that even dreams could betray you. Some children developed anxiety around sleep or separation. Things are about to get stranger. If simple toys and silly cartoons can hide fear, what happens when fear wears a smiling face? Level 2. Cute meets creepy. These films still look like fun, but something's off. The colors are bright, the music is sweet, but the ideas underneath are dark. Let's open the little door to somewhere we shouldn't be. Coraline, 2009. Coraline hides a hidden door that leads to a mirror world, one where her other mother cooks her favorite meals, listens to her stories, and seems to offer the perfect life. But everything about this world is off. The silence, the too wide smiles, the way the other mother watches her every move. When she offers Coraline a gift, buttons for eyes, the illusion shatters into a waking nightmare. The other mother doesn't want to love Coraline. She wants to own her. After watching, many children felt an odd mix of sadness, fear, and guilt. Some had recurring nightmares of being trapped or replaced. Coraline showed how love can turn into control. But what if love isn't there at all, just violence from the start? Watership Down, 1978. This animated movie about rabbits is often remembered for its violence. These rabbits face brutal fights, snares, and even suffocation. There's blood, death, and fear, and no safe place in sight. Many children were shown this in school, thinking it was just a cute animal film, only to be left with nightmares about being trapped or torn apart. It taught them that the world can be cruel, even to the innocent. And when innocence is in danger, who do you trust to protect you? What if the person you trust turns out to be the real monster? The Witches, 1990. A boy on holiday discovers that witches are real, and they hate children. They turn him into a mouse, and the Grand High Witch pulls off her human face to reveal a terrifying creature underneath. What made it worse was how normal the witches looked before the reveal, blending in with regular people. This taught kids that danger could hide in plain sight, and even the most trusted adults might not be who they seem. If witches hide behind sweet smiles, what happens when horror is celebrated in plain sight, especially with your own family? The Addams Family, 1991. Wednesday and Pugsley perform a school play, and instead of acting, they gleefully slice each other with fake swords, spraying gallons of blood into the horrified audience. Their parents erupt in cheers, while others scream in shock. What looks like violence becomes entertainment, a twisted celebration of pain and chaos. The blood isn't just for fun, it's a message. For kids watching, it was the first time they saw horror treated like a game, leaving them confused and disturbed. It sparked a deep fear. What if the people who are supposed to protect you actually enjoy the anxiety they cause? You're heading downward now. We've passed the point of playful fear. What comes next is made to scare, and it works. Level 3, disturbing by design, fear on purpose. These movies weren't accidents. They were meant to frighten, even if they were made for kids. Let's go under the bed and see what's waiting there. Little Monsters, 1989. Brian meets Maurice, a loud, wild-eyed monster who drags him into a hidden world under the bed, a bed full of broken rules, rotting jokes, and kids who've lost themselves. At first, it feels like a dream. No school, no parents, just chaos and freedom. But something's wrong. The longer Brian stays, the more twisted the world becomes, and the way his own mind starts to change. The other kids there don't laugh like kids anymore. They don't talk like kids. They're monsters now. And Brian is becoming one of them. It's not just creepy, it's the fear that you could lose yourself and never realize it until you're insane. The fear of turning into something monstrous leads us to a story where the danger isn't hidden. It's waiting just beyond your front door, ready to attack. Ernest Scared Stupid, 1991. In this movie, a troll is accidentally released and starts turning children into wooden dolls. Its design is disgusting, its behavior relentless. There's even a moment where a girl sees the troll hiding under her bed, an image that stuck with many young viewers. Kids started screaming when they saw this movie for the first time. What starts as a silly story becomes a nightmare about being taken and kidnapped forever. And if the monster is waiting under your bed, what happens when it takes your body and no one can save you, even your own family? Take a look at this young boy. Pinocchio, 1940. This old Disney classic hides one of the most disturbing segments in children's animation, Pleasure Island. At first, it's a playground of endless fun, candy, cigars, and no rules. But one by one, the boys begin transforming into donkeys, their limbs reshaping, their voices cracking into screams. One boy calls for his mother as he vanishes into the animal he's become. The coachman grins as he watches, rounding up the now voiceless creatures to sell. Kids didn't just see a punishment. They saw what happens when the world lets you fall apart without stopping it. It planted a deep, quiet fear. What if being bad doesn't just hurt others? What if it also erases who you are? After witnessing children stripped of their freedom, now we enter a world where even animals fight, suffer, and bleed just to survive. The Secret of Nim, 1982. Mrs. Brisby, a field mouse, seeks help from superintelligent rats to save her sick son. But these rats were once lab animals, experimented on by humans, and their world is full of betrayal, dark magic, and violent death. Sword fights leave blood, and even a kind character is crushed to death. For many kids, this was the first time they saw animated creatures bleed or die for real. It was a sharp reminder that life, even in cartoons, can be brutal. We're entering deeper waters now. These next stories start to feel truly dangerous. There's no turning back. Level 4. No escape. When the fear takes over. Now the fun is gone. The weirdness becomes real horror. These movies show kids being hunted, transformed, or trapped, sometimes without any happy ending in sight. Let's begin with a return to a beloved land that's now broken and full of danger. Return to Oz, 1985. Dorothy returns to Oz expecting color and comfort, but finds a broken nightmare instead. Before she even leaves Kansas, she's strapped to a hospital bed and scheduled for electroshock therapy, punished for believing in fantasy. When she escapes, Oz is no longer safe. It's silent, crumbling, and haunted by the screeching wheelers, creatures with wheels for hands and faces twisted in madness. Her former friends are turned to stone, and the palace is ruled by Princess Mombi, who calmly strolls through a hallway of glass cases holding severed, blinking heads, her own collection, which she wears like jewelry. Kids expecting a happy return were left shaken, confused by the cruel twists and soulless horror. It broke their trust in happy endings and planted a fear that imagination, the very thing they were taught to cherish, could be punished with silence, pain, and fear. If Oz became a place of silence and fear, the next movie takes us somewhere just as magical, but where magic is a mask for something deadly. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971. At first, the Chocolate Factory feels like a dream. Rivers of chocolate, walls of candy, and a mysterious man with a golden ticket. But behind every sugary delight hides a darker turn. One by one, children are swallowed by the factory, sucked through pipes, inflated like balloons, or sent into voids without explanation. The boat ride scene becomes a turning point. Flashing lights, live insects, a chicken beheaded on screen, and Wonka's voice shifting into a manic chant as he stares ahead, blank and unblinking. The insane setting becomes a machine that feeds on childish flaws. For many kids, it was their first taste of surreal horror, a lesson that joy can mask cruelty, and that adults, especially the ones who smile the widest, might secretly enjoy watching you suffer. While Wonka's factory shows danger with a grin, let's dive straight into what happens after we die. And it's not peaceful. Beetlejuice, 1988. A young couple dies suddenly and finds themselves stuck haunting their old home, invisible and helpless as strangers take over their lives. The afterlife isn't peaceful. It's a twisted system where lost souls sit in grim waiting rooms and people who took their own lives. Beetlejuice, the shape-shifting demon they turn to for help, is vulgar, violent, and obsessed with forcing a teenage girl into marriage. His tricks mask something worse. He plays with the dead like toys. One moment, a man's head is shrunken to the size of a fist. Another, a flattened corpse hangs suspended, still moving. For kids, the idea that death could be strange and cruel, not restful, struck deep. Some viewers have reported that the film caused nightmares for children. If Beetlejuice made death feel like a joke, this shift takes us back to life, where the real horror comes from adults who hide their cruelty behind rules and paperwork. Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, 2004. 3 orphan siblings are forced into the care of Count Olaf, a failed actor and a cruel manipulator who will stop at nothing to steal their inheritance. He doesn't just mistreat them. He attempts to legally marry the eldest girl, Violet, in a staged play with real consequences. Every adult they turn to dismiss their pleas for help, trapped in their own ignorance or fear. The siblings are clever, resourceful, and brave, but it never matters. The film didn't just scare children, It made them feel powerless, unseen, and emotionally abandoned, and that's what lingered long after the movie ended. You've crossed the point of no return. These next films don't just frighten, they are disturbing. Level 5. Deep cuts. Nightmares that linger. These movies left more than fear. They left permanent scars. These are the stories kids never forgot, the ones that stuck around long after the credits rolled. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, 1968. What starts as a whimsical story about a flying car quickly turns into something much darker. The family visits a strange country called Bulgaria, where children are completely outlawed. There, they meet the child catcher, a ghost-like man with oily hair, a hooked nose, and a sing-song voice who sniffs out hidden children. He lures them with sweets, then pounces with a shriek and drags them into a rolling iron cage. It's a moment of pure terror that hits without warning. For many, it left behind a deeper anxiety that someone friendly could become a predator and that no one might be there to stop it. From one unsettling adult to another, let's dive into a thriller that leads straight to hell. All Dogs Go to Heaven, 1989. Charlie, a streetwise dog, is murdered by his former partner and wakes up in heaven, only to steal a magical watch that lets him return to Earth. But what starts as a second chance becomes a downward spiral into guilt, revenge, and something far more terrifying. Charlie begins to dream of his true fate, dragged down by snarling demons into a river of fire, screaming while giant claws pull him toward damnation. These visions weren't just scary, they were unforgettable. For many kids, this was their first image of hell, delivered in a movie with singing animals. It made death feel real, cruel, and permanent. Some children were left shaken for days, terrified that even cartoons couldn't protect them from eternal punishment. After that flaming vision, let's board a train that feels less like a dream and more like a ghost story. The Polar Express, 2004. This Christmas movie is supposed to feel magical, but something always feels wrong. The characters move like puppets, with frozen faces and glassy eyes that never blink quite right. The animation lands deep in the uncanny valley, making kids feel like they were watching real people trapped in a dream. The ghostly hobo on the train comes and goes without reason, whispering strange warnings about belief, loss, and growing up. For many viewers, it created a lasting fear, not of monsters, but of uncertainty itself. They didn't feel wonder. They felt watched. It made them question what was real and what might be hiding. From snowy dreams to full-blown nightmares, the next entry delivers a terrifying moment you never see coming. Pee-wee's Big Adventure, 1985. In the middle of this playful, quirky movie, everything changes with one scene. Pee-wee hitches a ride with a trucker named Large Marge, who calmly tells a story about a horrific crash, then suddenly transforms into a skeletal corpse with bulging eyes and a mouth stretched in an impossible scream. The moment is abrupt, grotesque, and deeply scarring. Kids who'd been laughing seconds earlier were frozen in shock. You've gone too far to climb out. The next films don't just scare you while you're watching. They change the way you see the world. Level 6. Irreversible horror. Nothing feels safe anymore. Now we're in deep. These movies go beyond bad dreams. They bring lasting fear of growing up, of being alone, of losing control. 2009. In a ruined world after humanity's fall, small stitched-together dolls called Stitch Punks struggle to survive against monstrous machines. The worst of them is the seamstress, a spider-like creature that lures victims with recorded voices of their friends and family, then drags them into her tangled body. Once inside, they're sewn up, silenced, and used like puppets, still alive, but trapped forever. The horror isn't just in the violence, it's in the helplessness. Kids watching were struck by the fear of being erased, of existing only as a shell with no voice or choice. It wasn't just scary, it was existential, making children question what it means to disappear and be forgotten by the world around you. And if being erased is the fear, this next film is about losing your identity one step at a time. The Last Unicorn, 1982. A lonely unicorn discovers she may be the last of her kind and sets off to find others, only to learn they've been driven into the sea by a massive, silent red bull. Her journey leads her through dark forests and crumbling castles, and in the process, she's transformed into a human girl. But the longer she remains human, the more she forgets her true self. Many young viewers reported recurring dreams or intrusive thoughts about being trapped in the wrong body, forgotten by loved ones, or slowly vanishing from memory. Some avoided rewatching the movie entirely because it stirred emotions they weren't ready to confront. But if fading away hurts, being trapped forever is even worse. Something Wicked This Way Comes, 1983. A mysterious carnival rolls into a quiet town, promising dreams come true. But underneath the magic is something deeply wrong. Mr. Dark, the smiling ringleader, offers twisted wishes that come at a soul-crushing cost. In one infamous scene, hundreds of real tarantulas pour across a sleeping boy's body, their legs skittering over his face as he silently panics. In another, a man ages into a withered corpse in a matter of seconds. The tarantula scene in particular left a traumatic mark. Many young viewers developed arachnophobia or recurring nightmares about being trapped, unable to scream, as something crawled over them. The realism of the spiders, because they were real, made it worse. It wasn't a fantasy. You've reached the bottom. What lies here is not for kids at all, but we saw it anyway. Level 7. Beyond the Edge. Pure nightmare fuel. These are the movies that should never have been shown to children. They don't just scare, they scar. Let's begin with one of the weirdest, grossest, and most confusing films ever aimed at kids. The Garbage Pail Kids movie, 1987. 7 grotesque mutant children crawl out of a filthy trash can to wreak havoc. With names like Messy Tessie and Foul Phil, they burp, vomit, steal, and bite off toes while wearing lifeless rubber masks that barely move. The humor is cruel, the visuals are repulsive, and the entire movie feels like a nightmare in daylight. After watching it, many kids couldn't look at the Garbage Pail Kids trading cards or merchandise without flinching. Some reported nightmares or anxieties, especially tied to the design of the characters' faces and the disturbing scenes of confinement and transformation. And now, a final entry. A repeat, but one that deserves a second mention for just how deeply it traumatized. Watership Down, 1978. We saw it earlier, but it belongs here at the bottom because nothing prepared children for what this movie truly was. It opens with a vision of blood-drenched fields and ends with rabbits choking, bleeding, and screaming as they die. One rabbit claws the air while drowning in his own panic. Another stumbles across the aftermath of a massacre, bodies piled, eyes open. It looks like a storybook, but plays like war. Countless kids have recalled sleepless nights, crying fits, and disturbing dreams following the movie. The screams of wounded rabbits and the imagery of blood-stained fields stayed lodged in their minds. Some even report lifelong trauma, avoiding animal death in movies altogether because of this film. Children's films have long experimented with darkness, but some dive in headfirst. They leave more than a shiver. They leave questions about trust, about death, about what it means to grow up and lose pieces of yourself. And in that way, maybe the scariest thing about these movies isn't the monsters, it's how much they understand us. If you're still in the mood for more psychological deep dives into the bizarre, the haunting, and the unexplainable, well, there's always another level. Stay tuned and subscribe for more.